Hello, everybody. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Katie, and I'm the co-founder of Joy Women's Wellness. I'm so excited to be here and talk all things hormone balance. Um, I started Joy because I had my own issues. I really went through it with fertility and IVF and miscarriages, and then having my babies later on in life, which led to a really hard recovery in perimenopause. And so I started this because I really want to help women be more educated and be empowered to really take control of their own health and really get the answers and the support that they need to just feel better on a day-to-day basis. And I'm so excited to talk to Mila today, and I want to hear way more about your story and way more about how you founded your company and what you guys do. And I think that we have a lot of synergies in what we're trying to do. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. So if you kind of just want to introduce yourself and tell us your story, we're excited to hear it.
Of course, thank you so much, Katie. And I love your story as well because there's something just so powerful when you have like a true purpose and you've lived through what you preach. And that definitely happened to me, but in a very backwards way. The way that I got to creating Milamend, what I like to tell everybody is it was the happiest accident of my life. I truly owe everything to my community. They're the reason why Milamend exists. And the reason why I say this is because I don't know how familiar you are with PCOS. Very.
We see a lot of PCOS ladies, but I think it's still to a lot of people a mystery. So I'd love you to talk about
Right.
what that is.
Absolutely. And to me it was a mystery. And I always laugh about the fact that when people ask me my story or they ask me about my journey with PCOS, I say, oh boy, I have to start like when I was 12 years old. I need to tell you half the story of my life. But to keep it short, because I can talk about this for an entire hour, I presented with PCOS symptoms my ever since I hit puberty. I went through puberty very young. I remember I got my period in lower school and I
Mm,
started to have acne in lower school and I started to have all these differences than all my other friends. And I started to hide it
mm.
also because I looked very different. And what I like to tell everybody, I'm so glad that this is now a trend, thick eyebrows, but they come with baggage. You're hairy and hairy, like thick facial hair, thick body hair. And if you have PCOS, boom, it's going to be a little bit difficult to go through that when you're so young because then comes the issues of bullying and I was always made to feel a bit like an alien when I was growing up, also in Texas. I'm from Mexican origins, but when I was growing up in Texas, I guess this was very not common. And because of these factors that were not common and doctors didn't see it all the time, they blame my genetics. And it's super common. So
Wow.
in my entire life, I grew up and I started to have deep, painful cystic acne. My cycles were still painful and irregular, but it is normal that as you age and as you go through puberty, they regulate. And I was always just crossing my fingers for that. But it got to the point where it really started to hurt my self-esteem and my confidence. So I started birth control very young. The
To help
combination
regulate it.
pill.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I
Just a
was
quick stat. I
Mhm.
was looking at this before, so I feel that they say about 15% of people, women in the US have PCOS. Is that what you know as well, or
Oh, 15%, I would say um, 1 in 7.
no? Okay.
But probably more. It's probably more.
Because it's
In
un
science,
undiagnosed. People don't know what it is.
70% of women go undiagnosed, and those are the
Okay.
lucky few. So it really depends. Sometimes you read 1 in 10, sometimes 1 in 7.
Yep.
I mean, we're in the talks right now. We're not me, but scientists are in the talks of renaming the syndrome, the disease, because you can even have PCOS without having polycystic ovaries.
Mm.
So there's definitely there's a new wave of understanding PCOS. Thankfully, now we're all talking about it. But as I was growing up, I never heard PCOS until the day I got my diagnosis. And even the day I got diagnosed later in my 20s, I went to the pharmacist or my little support group that I had created before my diagnosis, and they had no clue what PCOS was.
Mm,
And they helped my mother with her menopause and her process with HRT. So I thought they would know everything hormones, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know about that one." So since then, I think it was more than 5 years ago, they really know about PCOS. And that's the beauty of the last few years, also powered by TikTok and social media. Everybody is now really talking about PCOS. But quickly, just to tell you, I can talk about my journey for ages. I went through birth control pills when I was 13.
yeah.
Then I took spironolactone because the acne was still persistent, and my doctor was like, "Oh, I've heard it really helps with facial hair as well." And then the higher dosage was more efficacious, but it also came with the side effects. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay on spironolactone because something interesting with PCOS and a lot of women that also might have endocrine disorders or autoimmune diseases, or what I like to say, just we're a little bit more sensitive. You might also have POTS,
Mm,
so postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And if you take spironolactone, which can be a diuretic, I remember perfectly, I was in a soul cycle class and there was this really like cute teacher. And I was like front row that day and I'm like, I booked my bike and I'm gonna have a great class with my friend. I passed out.
oh my gosh. Cut from POTS. So you also had POTS as well.
From POTS, but
And
also
this and
because
the
uh,
medication.
yeah, the high dosage of spironolactone. And
Yeah.
that's where I realized, this medication doesn't work. Then metformin was also presented to me. So many medications were presented to me, but yet no diagnosis.
Mm,
And metformin, it works beautiful in some women, but for those that might have IBS,
okay.
it did not work for me
Dang, you got
either.
really
So
hit with everything.
I'm telling you, I'm a very sensitive person, and birth control was the only one that was helping me. But it got to a point where, as I got older, I got more responsibilities, and with responsibilities comes stress.
Mm.
And I went to university, I went to New York, and right when I started my education, the pandemic hit.
Mm,
And it was very stressful. For my family, it was a really difficult time. We went through a really difficult financial situation. My husband, he also lost his father during that time
Mm.
that I was very close to. And for some reason, I mean, quite obviously, going through financial stress that I was never used to, moving to university, which is always stressful, moving away, and then going through grief. I had the worst flare of my life that started to rob me away from opportunities. I started to not be able to keep up with my easy classes that are just, I forget what they're called, but like the typical first semester classes that everybody
Oh,
has to
like your
take.
prereqs?
Yes, yes, prereqs. I couldn't keep up with prereqs. I couldn't keep up with easy things, and I had this draining fatigue, and I realized I needed help. And this is where I started to go to internists, to endocrinologists, to OBGYNs. And unfortunately, still, I was not getting anywhere because I was on contraceptives and they wouldn't run hormone tests on me because I'm taking synthetic hormones.
yeah.
So,
So so that lowers, for anyone that doesn't know, birth control will lower your sex hormone production. So on a lab, uh,
right.
it wouldn't really show much for sex hormones. They'd be low.
Exactly. And also like even still today we don't really have like I think we're getting better with hormone testing, but just to like get lucky with a doctor that believes in hormone testing as well at a young age, I really
Right.
had to beg for it, but still everything was normal. It was in the typical reference ranges, not really in optimal ranges. So I didn't get anywhere. And I started to feel this pressure of my family and my friends, and because you know that there's something off, and then professionals are telling you that there's nothing wrong, If
Right.
anything, they're telling you here's an antidepressant, like relax.
Ugh, yeah.
And you have this deep conviction that you have to keep going, but then in your own support groups or in your support circle, your family, they start to think, oh, I think we have a little hypochondriac here.
Ugh.
So that was a bit of a blow. But the day I got diagnosed with PCOS was because I kept getting worse to the point where it affected my mental health,
Mm.
my progesterone levels to the point where I was having panic attacks.
Mm.
I grew up driving in Texas. If you can drive in Texas, you can drive anywhere in the world. I would get into a cab and think I was going to die.
Oh,
I would have to close my eyes and I would go on dates with my husband and be like, hey, can you just tell me when we're there? And he's like,
oh
what
my
is this?
gosh.
Go yes. And so I started to really not behave like myself. And then I started to have hot flashes that I would sweat the entire bed every night. And
Wow.
this is where Lucas, my husband, he's like, I need to go to these appointments because clearly now I really like, I've seen the progression and it's these doctors need to do something. And that's where he started to call these endocrinologists and OBGYNs of his friends. And he finally got me the endocrinologist in Paris when
Wow.
we were visiting, because he's French. He's French. We were visiting his mother on a trip. And this lovely endocrinologist finally did a hormone test after I had been a few, like, I believe it was almost a year off of hormones. And she tested my LH to FSH ratio, my free testosterone, and did a whole panel.
And so your
And
testosterone was high?
my testosterone, believe it or not, it no, and that's
That's usually the
something.
case with PCOS, right?
It's usually the case, but also I believe my SHGB was very high,
Mm.
but I later on it became high. But I know that the birth control pill
Uh,
permanently or like for a long time affects yours.
lowers, yeah. It
Yeah,
raises your SHBG, so then you have less
right.
testosterone to use. Yeah,
Exactly. So I was still in that
yeah.
area.
Okay.
Now, later on, it did go. It was higher. But once I got my LH to FSH ratio, that was in the parameters of PCOS. Then I got a transvaginal ultrasound. I got diagnosed with PCOS. I thought it was like that eureka moment, and I was like, I'm gonna get the cure. I'm gonna feel amazing. I go into the follow-up appointment and I tell her like with the biggest grin, I'm like, what can I take? This is it. I can go back to being a student and thriving. And she told me, well, you already tried this. You don't want to go back on birth control. You don't want to take spironolactone. You can't take metformin. Eat less, move more.
Oh, so that was heartbreaking again.
One of the toughest days of my life because I truly had spent so much money by then on so many teas and guides and chiropractors and seeing all these people and specialist appointments that even things that my insurance wouldn't pay for. And I really felt defeated.
Mm.
But I was very stubborn. And that's what saved my life, being very stubborn.
Yeah.
And when I met my husband's father, the first day I ever met him, he made me a little Ziploc because it was winter in New York. And he said, come over here. Let me bring you to my little cabinet by the kitchen. He goes, here's a spore probiotic. Here's liposomal vitamin C. Here is zinc picolinate. And he made me the most incredible immune supporting Ziploc kit of supplements. And I told him, I've never seen those supplements at CVS. What is this? And he actually got nutraceutical, like, the better supplements from his pharmacist that you don't really see at convenience stores or in retail, even on Amazon. They're hard to find. These are real science-driven supplements. And so I remembered, sadly, he passed away, but I remember that moment. I wanted to go see his pharmacist, and that was my first stop after my trip in Paris. I started to do a protocol. He started to teach me everything about the immune system, how important that is for
Right.
your thyroid and your endocrine system. And he also said, hey, you have that lab work, give it to me. And he put it in his computer and he ran it through like a crazy system called Optimum DX that puts everything into optimal ranges. And he goes, you have hypothyroidism.
Mm.
And you have your liver is not in the range that it should be, and you're also about to become iron deficient. You're like already there, but you're about to really be deficient. So he taught me about everything. He taught me about Epstein-Barr, how I had mononucleosis, but sometimes with stress, those your Epstein-Barr levels can flare and they can rise, and you can have this fatigue as well. That could be an explanation. But I didn't have the component of hormone health yet. He was really expert in immune and thyroid and more basic things. And that's where I knocked on my mom's door and I go, hey, mom, can I go see your pharmacist that compounds your bioidentical estrogen and testosterone creams? And because I remember her pharmacy is like a Disneyland of nutraceuticals. And she completed the picture. And even then, I spoke to her about PCOS, and she goes, oh, I don't know about PCOS. And I go, what do you mean? But the cool thing here is that for an entire year, we were debating and giving each other like scientific studies that I would find on inositol. She was not well versed with inositol, had never heard of it. I was like, oh my God, here's this research. And then we start to compile this science-backed supplement stack
Hmm.
based on just research studies that I was finding because I was so lucky that I still had my NYU student ID card and I was able to access studies that are behind paywalls.
Oh,
Yeah, I that when I
interesting.
learned that blew my mind. I'm sure there's a reason to why they are behind paywalls and it makes sense in a business way,
Hmm.
but it still kind of boils my blood that there's some research studies that you have to pay for. Like I've seen one that you have to pay $500 to rent it for 24 hours.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I had that access. I had the ability to really, really do read, which knowledge is power.
Yep.
And we created the supplement stack that gave me my cycle back, helped me not have cystic acne, helped me become more insulin sensitive. So you can imagine just the benefits there.
Hmm.
Strengthened my immune system, so I didn't really have those flares. Also helped me with energy, and I thought that was it. I was gonna go back to my life. I was gonna go be a student, be a good girlfriend, and just live again. But I went to go get my wisdom teeth surgery. And I became, of course, the 0.0005% chance of a patient contracting an infection. Even though I took antibiotics before the surgery and during and after, I contracted an infection that became an abscess that came out to here
Oh my gosh.
from my jaw, from this side of my jaw, but it was external and it was also internal. So it was pressing on my cranial nerves, pressing on my throat, and it felt like strep. Like I just from the pressure, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat, I couldn't speak, I couldn't sleep because of the crazy migraine that I was just having from the pressure in my head. And what I like to say is that I was put into this forced meditative state. And in that week that I was in a hospital, I had 6 surgeries inside my mouth to hopefully not have to cut from the outside, um, and taking IV antibiotics every 4 hours.
Ugh.
I didn't eat at all. I couldn't, like I could have, but I did not. I was just, if nobody touched me and I was able to meditate, I would just be better. Um, this is where I realized that my grandma was always right when she told me health is everything and pray for health. And I thought it was a very cheesy thing that she would say. She was right. And
Mm.
that's where my psyche was completely cleansed. And I said, I cannot believe that I cared about all these vain little things, all these little problems that I've ever had in my life. Like they were so small. And I'm actually somebody that is incredibly introverted. I never once, like, my biggest fear would have been to do what I do today, which is have a public platform and make videos for people. I am so private and I can't tell you how my heart was beating in the beginning. I was about to pass out. This is not natural for me, but
Oh, can I just say I get that. I am the same way. And Tessa knows this
yeah.
about me. I'm like, I never want to be in public or speak, and Tessa makes me do it still. But
But
And you always do
no, but
great, and it gets people talking.
it's
But it
and
is
that's
important
yeah.
to share your story because people do
Yes.
feel alone. And I can't believe that in this modern day and age, we still, like we still have to find the answers for ourselves. And I believe
Yeah.
that's so much. And I'm going through this with my mom right now too, where like she's trying to recover from surgery and like she's not getting better and nobody's
Oh,
helping her. And she's going back to the surgeon and he said, my surgery's great, you're fine. And like she's not fine. And she's going to another doctor and like, it might take a year before you feel like nobody knows and nobody can help. And they all just send you on your way. And you know that something's not right, you do not feel well, and
yeah.
it does consume you. And I think that kind of how when we were looking at starting this company, we found this quote that resonated. It was like a person with health has like a million things on their mind, but if you don't have your health, you only have that one thing on your mind because it is all consuming when
Absolutely.
you're not feeling well. So I
Absolutely.
relate on so many levels.
I can imagine, and that's the most beautiful thing because when I was in the hospital and what I like to say is like I completely lost my ego. Like I could care less about everything. Like I understood the meaning of life
Oh,
in that moment, and I said, "Let me open up my TikTok." I don't care. Like I have no followers, but I know there's another Mila out there that is going through this and going through this hell. I want to protect her from everything that she's about to go through because I did go through very difficult moments
right.
that I've never really shared. Like I have permanent side effects from some medications that I took, like that affect my vision. And I deal with it every single day. I've never spoken on that, but if
Yeah.
I can protect her from going through that, everything is worth it. And my first video went viral.
Mm,
And then my second video went viral. And I'm like, what is going on? But then I truly believe that it was all meant to be. And my community, in a way, started to, they were, it was like they were learning so much that they were no longer like it was not just them, but I was also learning so much through them. And I'm probably not saying this correctly, but in one sentence, they healed me in a
mm,
way because I didn't know anybody else that had gone through this experience. My
right.
mother is perfect. My mother is hairless. She's never had a pimple. So my community healed me, and that is the most beautiful thing because that gets you through tough days at work. That
Right.
gets you through stage fright.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because having this line of work, you know that at the end of the day, the only thing you're doing is you're helping women heal or not feel alone. And
Alone.
they're my strength. That's why I'm
Right.
here.
And you know what?
Hi.
We really just need hope, right? Like at the end of the day, if you
Yeah,
have no hope that things can get better, then it's very depressing. And then you do need that antidepressant that they're giving you. That's the one thing. So yeah, like the hope and the actual steps to, get things better is so helpful.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for being brave and for sharing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Let's um let's definitely make sure that we're asking, getting all your questions
Yeah,
answered because that's also while you're here as well. So please feel free to answer those questions. I think in terms of like root cause
yeah.
with PCOS, it's generally metabolic. Is that your understanding as well? Which is interesting because the root cause of like PCOS is generally metabolic or insulin resistance. Have you heard that?
Yes,
Uh,
yes. And I believe that it's definitely it's a metabolic, there's a metabolic component. But I've also met so many women that have PCOS and they don't have insulin resistance and they're
yeah.
insulin sensitive.
So it's a little bit it's
So
more nuanced. And it's what's interesting too is you don't have to be like overweight to that's not
yeah,
like you can still be insulin resistant or have metabolic issues and be thin, which is confusing,
yeah.
I think, for a lot of people too.
I was always leaner towards my teenage years. And the time I got diagnosed was when I had the 30-pound weight gain and I visibly looked different.
Because
So
then it
that's
was
also
probably more obvious, maybe at that point, for someone to be like, well,
exactly.
this is probably the issue. But like when you
You can
don't
have it
present
without.
with all of those, it's a little bit probably harder to figure that out.
Absolutely.
Um, so someone is saying there I have hormonal imbalances, but I have not been diagnosed with anything. I have severe PMS, IBS with SIBO. I'm going to see a doctor soon for checking. Yeah, for endometriosis. Yeah, so a lot of people have endometriosis. I think it's about 10% of women also have endometriosis. And while
Yeah.
PCOS is a lot of times the root cause is largely metabolic, endometriosis a lot of times is inflammatory and immune. And then
Yeah.
stuff like PMDD, I think, 8% of women maybe have that. That's like heavy irregular periods, but that is, I believe, a neuro connection, like a neurobiological connection. Uh,
Hmm.
and then the other thing it's also interconnected. A lot of women have thyroid issues, which also kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah, we see a lot of people with thyroid issues too, so it's really important to optimize your insulin resist your metabolic health and then also your thyroid health. Those are really like, and then your immune, like you mentioned, and then
Exactly. That's
inflammatory.
that's one of the biggest takeaways for me because I've also learned there's such a big connection with histamines.
Mm.
So many people are now finally talking about mast cell activation syndrome.
Yep.
I definitely have not as of a oh wow, my English today, sorry. Not as severe
Mm.
of a case with mast cell activation syndrome, but there's a histamine connection with PMDD. And there's so many women like that go on TikTok and they share that they take Zyrtec, an
Mm,
H1 blocker, and Pepcid, an H2 blocker, and they feel great when during their luteal phase when they go through a very tough time. So I there's so many connections. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and I can tell you, I'd love to hear actually also more about like what you do from, so obviously you have the
Yeah.
supplement, which is what helped you and now what you're providing for other people. And that has a lot of all the good things that you've been talking about in it. And then from
Yeah.
like other lifestyle things, what are your major like things that you have to stick by? Because I'm sure you can't just take a supplement and that's it, right? You're like
No,
living
no, no, no,
all of
no.
it.
Impossible. And that's something that I tell all my girls before they even consider Milamend because we get messages from women all over the world and some women that the shipping is outrageously expensive. And obviously my goal is to have it everywhere.
Right.
But they say, hey, I'm really thinking about this investment, but what other things can I do until then? And I say, well, you might not even need it if you focus on the foundations. I think medication and supplements, they're a tool. They're lovely, lovely tools. I never shame anybody that is on medication, but when they're like me and they just are very sensitive, it's nice to have an alternative. That is the reason I obviously built Milamend is because my community, in a way, asked me to. And I was like, yes, ma'am, like they're my boss. But it's just to provide that alternative. So other than that, what I say is make sure you are sleeping. And for me, I'm saying this now because, whoa, like when I started before I launched Milamend, I was so healthy. Now that I'm a founder, I'm not as healthy. There's no way. There's no way. So from a high stress environment, I would say I need to clock in at least 7 hours of sleep
Right.
to protect my body. That is when you are really helping your body with inflammation and deep repair and restorative sleep. Then, no brainer for anybody with PCOS.
Mm,
Blood sugar balance is key. Try to have protein in every meal, but really try to swap any carbohydrate for a more low glycemic carbohydrate and have fiber. that is really, really going to help your blood sugar levels. You're going to feel better in terms of energy. And it's really over a long period of time is going to help your symptoms. Moving your body is so important, but movement is so tricky because sometimes, and again, some people love Pilates, some women love cardio. There's women that run marathons and they're killing it and they have PCOS and they're able to manage it. You really just have to figure out what works for you. And I had my biggest transformation by just walking
Mm,
and doing a little bit of strength training at home every
yep.
once in a while because that helped me feel better. And it's just move your body every day, but in a way that you can sustain it and that you really love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because consistency is key, and that's so important.
Yeah, I
You're
feel like,
going to flare. Yeah?
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it really speaks to personalization as well, and the community piece where it's like you really need to test
Yeah.
multiple different things and talk to other people who are having similar issues and collaborate and figure out
Yeah,
what works, what works. Uh,
absolutely.
I'm also curious too, we kind of touched on labs a little bit too, but if I were a female dealing with what I think were PCOS symptoms, I'd love to hear like what you would classify as things that you could maybe attribute to PCOS and what you would want to be testing
Mm.
in order to maybe not even diagnose PCOS, but to help you understand your body more and kind of navigate your health.
Ooh, I might forget the half end of the
That's okay.
question.
We can circle
I,
back.
that's okay. I go on tangents all the time. If you have not noticed, I have really bad ADD. But what are typical symptoms that if a friend comes to me and she has hormonal acne or is producing more oil, so like texture, blackheads, that type of acne can also be attributed, and like also hormonal acne. I mean, see, I'm going on a tangent, very specific. That is very common with higher androgens, male pattern baldness, if they're seeing an increase of hair shedding, definitely irregular cycle. If they
Yeah.
haven't had their cycle in months, I'd be like, get tested immediately.
Yeah.
Um, but also it can be like an irregular cycle. Sometimes it's 50 days, sometimes it's 45 days, sometimes it's 20 just not having a regular cycle. It's a big, big alarm. Um, Other than that, bloating and
Mhm.
weight gain, uh, very common, but also intense sugar cravings and having like a energy crash in the middle of the day. And something that's super common with us as well is that we have dysregulated cortisol levels
Mm,
and we might wake up exhausted, but then when it's time to go to bed, we're wide awake.
Yeah.
Or
Like,
their cortisol
let me
might
think about
just
everything right now.
exactly. And it's like, that's where I look at my husband and I'm like, you're so lucky. Like, he
Mine's
hits
the
the bed,
same
out,
way. He hits the pillow and he's out. I'm like,
and it's out.
okay.
And I'm here contemplating my life and every embarrassing thing I've ever done for
Yeah.
2 hours. No, no, no. I think
mm,
for me, that's the most common and clear sign.
yeah.
But testing, I think testing, mm, always nutritional deficiencies,
Yep.
Yeah.
free
We get the
testosterone.
testing question a lot. And I think someone actually also
Yeah.
asked, they said something about endocrinologists saying labs by nature always going to be inaccurate to determine hormones and related issues due to many factors. So do you believe this or do you pay for labs? And, I will tell you that we have a very strong stance on this because we do a lot of labs.
Yeah.
The truth is like, yes, hormones fluctuate. Labs have variability. It's a snapshot in time,
Yeah.
but they are also a wealth of information. So you don't
Exactly.
make decisions off of one random data point. You
Yeah.
look at the whole thing, you interpret the labs in context, you also pair the labs with your symptoms, which is super important. And then you look at when you're testing. So what phase of your cycle, if you're cycling, did you test it in? And so that gives us so
Exactly.
much information. And really the you know, that's one reason we think it's also very important to have the right person testing and interpreting your labs, because if someone's saying you don't need to test, that's probably because they don't know how to interpret it and they don't know how to look at it and figure out, what to tell you. Because if you look at medicine in general, like everything runs on labs. Like you need to check your thyroid to see how you fix your thyroid. You need to know your testosterone levels if you're going to supplement with testosterone. Like you need to know your insulin levels if you're getting into the pre-diabetic and need to be on insulin. Like everything in medicine, not everything, but a lot of things do rely on labs. And hormones are no different. Like you can still see your hormones and know what's off based on what your symptoms are, and then also, what time of the month it is.
Absolutely.
So I think if someone doesn't understand labs or know how to read them, and also the big difference too is like, are you looking at what's normal in like this huge range of people who don't feel well and they're getting their labs tested and they look at it and go, you're normal? Or are you looking at like, what's the best level for you to feel your best? And that's a much tighter range than the general normal ranges that people talk about. So it's really important to get someone who's had more education on this than your average medical school. And again, not putting doctors
Absolutely.
down, but it's just like it takes
Yeah.
way more information because especially like listening to your story, how many doctors did you go to that couldn't tell you, right? So it takes more studying. It takes an
Yeah.
interest in these women's health and hormone issues to really understand them. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And it takes someone who really cared to do the work to
Couldn't
help.
agree.
I think you can really link that to both PCOS and like perimenopause and menopausal women.
Yeah.
And honestly, just women's health as a whole, we are just now tapping into that. And I think it's so amazing that, not to hype us up, but like that,
Yeah.
Katie, that you have helped build this amazing team of clinicians who that is their sole purpose is to advocate for women's health and help women understand what's going on in their bodies. Uh,
Mm. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do
And
have
that,
some really good clinicians. I'm very proud of them, and they really do care, and they know they see it. They see it all the time, so it's not a mystery, when you come to them and say,
yeah,
"What's going on?" Yeah.
yeah,
it's so beautiful. And I think the work that you've done is incredible. The truly finding so many clinicians that really care, those are very hard to find. Those are
Mm.
yeah,
very, very special people.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation also with the doctor on our medical board. He's amazing. He's at Stanford. And I asked him, when it comes, if you receive a patient that has PCOS and is presenting with all these symptoms and all these things, what advice would you give to her? And he goes, to be completely honest, there is no way that I can, in one appointment, address all of her issues. It's going to take multiple.
yeah.
And that is not ideal, but it's just the way that the system is. And what I've learned in my experience, because again, like uh, I love medicine. Everything that we do is science driven, science first, but doctors are also victims of the system, just like us.
Yeah.
And they're not really, sometimes they are to blame, but not most of the time.
Right. When it's
Yeah.
not part of their education, it's like
Or the
how,
way that the
to an
appointments
extent,
are
how
set
can you
up.
blame them? Right. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, we did have one question come in that said, can Mila go over what's inside of Milamend and what may still need supplemented if taking her supplement bund? I'm suspecting PCOS and seeing huge results with a supplement stack and diet and exercise, but 14 pills every day is so much and so expensive.
Yeah. Oh, great question. So basically, what I like to say with Milamend is that we have four parts to the formulation. We have the 40-to-1 inositol blend that is the gold standard for PCOS. It's amazing at helping with insulin sensitivity.
Mhm.
And as we know, the moment you tackle one of that, it's a root cause of so many of our symptoms, you're going to feel better. And we complement that with chromium because that curbs, again, cravings and it helps us just make better decisions because so many of us struggle with food noise.
Yeah.
Then we have antioxidants. So CoQ10, alpha lipoic acid. CoQ10 is amazing for energy and for egg health. I don't want to go on tangents. And then we have nutrients like selenium in a clinical dosage that is amazing for thyroid care and support. Folate, methylated folate, so important for women. And then if I'm not, oh, zinc. Zinc is
Mhm.
fantastic. Again, for immune health, but
Right.
also for acne. And amino acids, that's something that we never talk about, but amino acids are beautiful. When you use them in correct ratios, um, L-glutamine is great for your gut lining. So many of our girls have IBS or digestive issues. Me. L-lysine, it's beautiful for your immune system, and it's something that has helped me again with. Did I mention Epstein-Barr?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Is that
Yeah.
also something that you've struggled with, you said?
Yes. So Epstein-Barr is in the medical community, and not a lot of people. It's like not a lot of people pay attention to it, but I've personally found that by suppressing the levels of Epstein-Barr in my body, the better I feel. But
Mm.
by that I mean it just means having a stronger immune system. So I caught Epstein-Barr virus when I got mono. It's a herpes virus. Can never get rid of it. Lies dormant in your body forever, but it can be triggered with stress.
Yep.
And the common symptoms are fatigue
Mhm.
and not feeling your best. So I learned again from Lucas's father's pharmacist the importance of having a strong immune system. So that's also one of the reasons why it's there. And also selenium is great for the immune system.
That's also
Tangent.
really great for thyroid too. I will say in
Yes.
Yeah.
a lot of our women suboptimal thyroid, especially the conversion from T4 to T3 is oftentimes off, and selenium really helps with that. And the other connection I always think about is that a lot of times the birth control pill will um decrease your selenium.
Yeah.
So it's what you say, you get on the birth control pill to help with some of your symptoms, but the birth control pill also will really deplete you of a lot of certain things that you need. So that's why it's important.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to do labs to see all those things and go, well, how else what else do
Oh,
I really need, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff
Katie, that
absolutely.
kind of leads into another question. Somebody said, can you speak on the labs and their range more and what's different about how Joy tests?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, when we started, first of all, it was crazy how there wasn't any labs around. So we had to really educate people on like why deep comprehensive labs
Mhm.
are beneficial. Now, the great news is there are labs everywhere. There are direct to consumer places to get labs, and that's fantastic. That means more access and that means better pricing. So you likely will need to go somewhere like Joy or one of our competitors where they do the big tests. Um, it's hard to go to your primary care doctor and get something so comprehensive because again, they don't generally do that. That's not how they're trained, and insurance doesn't generally cover those huge labs. We have had people that come in say, "I want to use my insurance." We click that box, and then they get a bill for thousands of dollars because insurance is just, we all know it's effed up. So what we do, like you can get a lab anywhere. If you can find the markers, we test up to 110 biomarkers and we have other competitors that do the same. The difference is again in how we interpret them and how we look at them.
Yeah.
So it's someone trained to go, let's look at the trends, let's look at what's off. And if you're on the borderline here, you're a little bit high here, you're a little bit low here. Those
Mm.
all tell a story, not maybe that you have some big disease or that you're, really unhealthy. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking at what are the trends here and what can we adjust so that you can
Yeah.
feel better. You can have the energy. You don't have the bloating. You can sleep at night. All those little things really add up to a lot. So again, it's more of the interpretation of knowing not this huge range and going, you're fine, you're normal, but really going like, this is where we really want it so that you feel your best. And that's a much tighter range.
Yeah.
And we've got optimal range charts that, we can pass along and all that kind of stuff. But all of our clinicians are very dialed into what's optimal and again, matching it to your specific symptoms.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think to add to your point, like it's not just the way you look at it, it's the way you treat people.
Right.
When I see Joy and Blokes, I feel safe, you know. There's so many of our competitors that might feel predatory in the way that they talk about hormone testing, or everything is always like, get hormone testing so you can finally lose weight. Or I feel like it's so tough in our industry where we see competitors taking health problems and deep insecurities and just using that against women. And I'm sure that that's something that you come across all the time. But I feel like, you know, everybody that has found us and is in this webinar, they're tired of that and they truly want care from every direction, even the way that they're welcomed into the platform. And for me, that's also what it's about.
Yeah, not trying to scare them, not leading with fear, but saying like
No,
there are
not at all.
answers, there is hope, and honestly, the power is in your hands, right? Like you choose, you get educated, you decide what's right for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I forgot to answer the last part of one of
Yeah.
our girls' questions. What other things she should take if she
Oh,
did
yeah.
take Milamend? This is one thing I wish I would have put in the blend, but then it would have been way too expensive and way too complicated. Magnesium,
Ah,
so good for women.
magnesium is one of my favorite supplements.
But you need a lot of it. And then our scoop would
Yep.
have become like a baking scoop to make
Yeah.
cakes.
Totally.
Um, uh, excuse me. And lastly, vitamin D, but that one is the
Mhm.
best in oil dropper. That I'd rather not put in powder.
Yeah.
Mm.
You get the best absorption. And obviously, if you have nutritional deficiencies, speak with your doctor.
Yeah.
Tessa, what magnesium do you like to take mostly?
That's a
Tessa
great
is
question. I was
also,
actually gonna add, I was gonna mention that. I take magnesium like 3 times a day
Do
in
you?
different forms.
oh,
Nice.
So I take magnesium L-threonate in the mornings because it's the only form that crosses the blood-brain barrier. I've noticed a huge difference in just my ability to focus. It helps my anxiety. And then I'll take a blend at night that has like all of the other, I think, what, 6 or 7 different forms.
yeah.
And then I
Nice.
also use magnesium spray. And then we
Oh,
have a sleep blend. So I'll take that magnesium blend, and then we have our own sleep blend at Joy, and that has magnesium glycinate in it. So I'll take that and then my magnesium spray. So I am loaded up on
Well,
magnesium.
to Mila's point, like it does take a lot of magnesium,
Yeah.
and there are different forms that do different things. So,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And I just want to point out that Tessa is our partnerships director, but she also is a nurse by trade. So
oh,
she's very brilliant when it comes to um,
Thanks.
all things health and wellness. She walks the walk for sure.
I love it. Nurses are the best.
Yeah. I'm curious, if we can speak about peptides quickly and
Oh,
what peptides may be beneficial for those in maybe struggling with PCS or PCOS type symptoms or in perimenopause as well. I think a few come to mind for me, but
you
Totally.
have
Katie,
to
I would
tell
love to
us.
hear like your top three.
Yeah.
Me?
Well,
Yeah.
and Tessa, you should definitely jump in here too. But
Yeah.
obviously, and I love your thoughts, Mila, because clearly GLP-1s can help as
Mhm.
well and be part
Yeah.
of the equation for PCOS because it's really helping with how you manage your blood sugar and how stable your blood sugar stays. So that can really help a lot of people. And I think when we started, a lot of people were on, like you mentioned, metformin, and that does work for some people, but not for everyone. There's some
Yeah.
downsides. So I do find that trying smaller doses of GLP-1s can be really helpful for people. And I don't know if you've ever tried that, Mila, or if you've heard anything
No.
about that.
No, I've never been able to because I'm just at such a risk of gastroparesis
Mm,
just because of my IBS.
Yeah.
yep.
But I definitely asked a doctor in the beginning. I was like, "Would this be a good idea?" He's like, "Mila, you have so many gut issues. No."
Oh,
Um,
I
but
do
I
think that's very interesting to say the least too. I more so because I think there's this side of GLP-1s that people don't really talk about, and that's more of like the microdosing GLP-1s, where
Mhm.
yes, you may be, and not to discredit him at all, obviously,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
there's like there's the standard for GLP-1s is weight loss. And there's these high
Yeah,
doses that you're taking for weight loss, but it's like, well, if we take a fifth of that dose, it can help
mhm.
with inflammation. It can just help regulate your blood sugar. It can help with
Yeah,
brain fog. It can help with all of these other things. And the risk of side effects is so much lower. And people don't talk about that or know that as much.
yeah.
So
No, look, I love the effects that GLP-1s have had on our community,
yeah,
but not only our community, women with autoimmune diseases.
yeah,
The lowering of inflammation, women that have arthritis, they feel better.
Right.
Obviously, it's case by case basis, but actually, a family of mine who was dealing with alcoholism
mm,
and
yeah,
smoking addiction, it saved their life.
wow.
Wow.
Now they're healthy and they also lost a lot of weight because they were overweight. They are so happy. They no longer take the drug. They don't longer depend on nicotine or alcohol, and they're as healthy as can be. And
That's
it
great.
gave me back a family member. So I am all for it. I don't ever villainize a drug, but I will say, guys, I moved to Europe. So this world of peptides and microdosing, I love it, but people here are stuck in ancient practices. So I would love to find a doctor that maybe would be open-minded, but I
Ah,
think
I
that's
didn't know you were actually living over there too. Fun. So it is probably, you also probably have way healthier like food system, right? So like people don't need, feel like in the US we're kind of stuck in this place where everything
yeah.
around us is kind of, I don't want to spread fear, but like there's a lot of things that we that are not good for us with our food and our soil and our air and all that stuff. And I think that messes with there are a lot of endocrine disruptors
Yeah,
here that kind
without
of,
a doubt. I
yeah.
think even just the water quality truly affects you. And me, I know when I travel, again, I'm a very sensitive person. And when I go to the US, sometimes like I just take a shower and I have itchier skin or I have a
Yeah.
rash. I have very sensitive scalp, so I might have like dandruff.
Mm.
So down just to those tiny little things, it does make a difference at the end of the day. But the food, right now, I currently moved to Switzerland.
Okay.
I love Switzerland.
Ah, you've been?
Yeah.
Oh,
Switzerland and Sweden are like my top two places, and Asia are
that's
like
great.
my top three that I would move to. I'm like, in a heartbeat, I would be there.
Great picks. Great
Wow.
picks.
I
We
love it.
definitely moved. I moved to Switzerland because Katie, being a founder, you can probably definitely relate. You barely leave your office and you're glued to your computer, especially in very like early startup stage, which is where we are. And I found myself never leaving my apartment. When I was building my company, it was in Paris. So I left New York. New York got way too expensive.
Mm.
And I was still in the little studio apartment with my husband building all of this. And I realized, we s- we never leave, so might as well do this in a place where we have fresh air. There's no noise when we open the window. We have a better quality of life, and it's helped my mental health tremendously, which has truly helped also Milamend as a company and my focus.
Mm.
So
Oh,
that's why I'm
beautiful. Well,
here.
I'm so thrilled for you. I'm very jealous.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Tessa did also say any last questions, but I'm curious too, afterwards, I'm hoping we are sending out both some offers for both people, for both, Joy and also Milamend.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that there's maybe something to kind of help people with
Yep.
cost or where we're going out.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
send ours in the chat right now. I sent the link and you can apply that discount code at checkout too. It should automatically add it for you, but that will give you 65% off labs and 20% off your treatments. So a good starting point if you are interested about doing your labs and getting more testing and having that conversation with a clinician who can kind of help walk you through your diet,
Mhm.
your lifestyle, your biomarkers, all of that. So
Great. And then I'm sure we'll email everyone also the Milamend codes too. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Important to share that love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, honestly, again, like, especially like relating to you on so many levels, I just really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing. And it's really beautiful that you've created something so special because again, if you look at all the ingredients that you've put in that are very specific for, PCOS and these issues, it would probably cost someone a wild amount of money to pick up each supplement on its own. So you've combined it, made it easy.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really a beautiful thing that you're doing for people. So
Thank
thank you
you. I
so
mean,
much.
Yeah.
and
It tastes
likewise with you.
delicious also, I will
Oh,
add.
yay! Thank
I
you.
I was when I was talking to Lauren, I was telling her I was like, I tried Milamend like probably like 2 years ago. And then
Oh,
just
fun.
hadn't or I don't know, a while back. I don't remember the exact timeline. And then I
Amazing.
think I just like fell off taking it. So I was super excited to collaborate with you guys because I was like,
Oh,
I loved the product. It tastes delicious. It's easy to add to your routine. It did make me feel so much better. So you have a great product.
thank you
Where
so
is it
much again.
available right now? Someone's asking about when is it coming to Europe? Is
Yes. So, spicy thing. We only have like 3 minutes left for this very spicy thing, but we learned that in Europe, the patented 40 to 1 inositol ratio is owned by a man.
Ugh.
And they're,
Sorry.
yeah. And they don't let anybody use it. Even
Oh,
though we don't sell in Europe, we import to Europe. Um, they got very angry at us. So we are in the process of figuring things out, um, which is a little challenge. We already figured it out, but it's just going to take some time for us to be able to reship again to our girls in Europe. They will
Mhm.
be getting a formal update with a lot of spicy knowledge, but you know, a lot of people think that building a supplement is easy. But when you actually try to help people and do things right, pharma hates it.
Yeah.
So my lawyer bills are crazy, but it's worth it. We're fighting back for our girls.
I love it so much.
Oh,
Keep going, Mila. Keep going. It's
thank
beautiful.
you. And
Amazing.
Yeah.
likewise.
Wait, well, what a great webinar. Thank you both for being on here. Thank you both for the communities that you've built and advocating for women's health. And I'm so excited for us to help that evolve and help it be more of a conversation.
I agree. Let's keep
Mhm.
going, ladies. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Tessa. Thanks everyone
Yes.
for being here.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.